Mr. Del Greco, would you lead us in a flag salute? Sunshine Law Statement. All requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the record in Town News and all persons requesting such notice. Mrs. Norian, would you read the mission statement?
The Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta. Here. Mr. Del Greco.
Here.
Mrs. Downey.
Here.
Mrs. Norian.
Here.
Mr. Nutlin.
Here.
Mrs. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Darian will not be here. Mrs. Nichols.
Here. Open to the public for agenda items only. Not seeing any, we'll move forward, and I'm sure we're going to hear all about the first day of school.
So it's been a little busy the past 2 days. I do believe that the past 2 days have gone really well. Once again, our staff consistently steps up, and when you forget that one little detail, somebody steps in and makes sure that everything happens. So I'm incredibly grateful to the administrative team and to all of our staff for ensuring that our students were safe, our students were happy. I will tell you, I do think it was an all-time low on criers. I walk around, it's one of the things I look for, and I actually like to help then, and I didn't see any. So hopefully tomorrow will be just as smooth. I know on the agenda it does talk specifically about the presentation of the overview of the revised language arts curriculum. However, I decided to put that into a summer update because I do usually use this meeting to also talk about any changes that have occurred over the summer. So I do hope that you were able to see the video that we launched on our social media sites. Our new administrative team got a welcome to Oradell Public School, go put a Panther costume on. I told them it was not hazing, that is illegal. This was just team bonding. So that happens to be one of our administrators as Yoda Panther. This summer, several facility updates occurred. We did finish renovating all of the stairwell treads in the summer. We do still have some landing work, and we're waiting for continued guidance on that. At this point, all of our stairwells in the building do have new treads and do have visual striping on them. This was the first year that we began to use some external cleaning services. If you look at that ductwork in the library, we just don't have the equipment to clean on top of it. So Mr. Iapelli did a great job finding a cleaning company that came in to clean this room, the library, the world language room, and they did come in to help us with some bathrooms as the summer was getting to a close, and we wanted to make sure that we did a really good job in those spaces as well. Our new landscaper has been very busy, and I know that we've had lots of comments about how much better the grounds are looking, and as we know, I'm a little obsessed with the newly painted flagpole that most people don't even notice. Our 2 new roofs are almost done. They are doing some additional work after school hours, and our 20 exhaust fans, I know we have a walkthrough with the vendor and our representative from LAN this week to talk about the closeout of that project as well. With regards to security updates, our fencing and gates on Center Street were in action today. We never said that parents couldn't come in during that time, but they saw that as a wall. So instead they blocked the entire street because there were just a lot of parents on that side of the building. We have put protocols in place. The gate will be open at the start of the day, and we have named a person to close it right after arrival. Our Vicata guest management system is also operational. We started using it about a week and a half before school started just to ensure that we've worked out all the kinks and that the office staff was familiar with it. And we have completed with the installation of 15 additional cameras, which brings our camera number up to 73 cameras in the building and outside the building. As you know, the Oradell Police Department can watch those cameras at any point in time, and several staff in the building have dedicated cameras on, whether it be an administrator on their desk or a secretary at their desk. The big project this summer was linking all the cameras with door sensors. So all of our cameras, now anytime we have a door, there is a camera on that door. If that door is opened when it shouldn't be, it will send an alert to the office. That part of the system will be active by next week. The only thing we are waiting on is the stickers for the doors, because the sticker on the door will say, this door may not be opened during school hours, this door may only be opened during lunch and recess, this door you may go through. So the main entrance door you may go through at any point in time, the MPRA door you will go through only during recess and lunch. And I think my new obsession, the bathrooms. The children are incredibly excited about the bathrooms. They notice them the minute they walk in. I like to call this stage one of the bathrooms. All of our bathrooms in the school have been fully cleaned, either with our own staff or an external cleaning crew. We've also been trying some new cleaners on the floors and some treatments on the floors as well. On the first floor, all bathrooms have been repainted. New lighting has been added in any bathrooms that we felt were dark, and new mirrors have also been added. Our plan is now to continue that with the second floor, and we are looking for a time during the school year where we have enough time to bring the painter in and to do that work. There are less bathrooms on the second floor, which is why we chose to start on the first floor. On top of the building work, inside and outside the building, our staff was very busy, as was our former Director of Curriculum, Mrs. Brancato, and our current Director of Curriculum, Ms. Cummings. As I shared at the last meeting, we revised our math curriculum. We reviewed that with staff today. 15 staff members participated with the Science of Reading professional development. Today was the first day, actually, of our 4 staff members who are taking part in FDU's Orton Gillingham certification program. They had class on the first day of school until like 7:30 tonight. So if they are still standing, we will be highly impressed tomorrow. And Ms. Cummings is going to talk a little bit about the reading and writing work that took place this summer.
Can we just put this up there, or it doesn't reach? No, because you're not a wire. It doesn't, it's too short.
I could like displace it just for now. Does the Atlantis reach? Can you just take the whole thing in the cord and just put it up? I could probably just, it's the problem is with, let me try this.
Otherwise, come sit by me with these 2 yellow ones.
I think it's the wire is my concern. Wire.
Reboot it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's fine.
No.
Robbie, it's okay.
Nope, because we're all on a chain, right?
Okay. Okay. So in 2023, the New Jersey Department of Education updated the standards to ensure that all students would be successful in college, career, and in life. So in order to do that, they identified the most specific standards to ensure that students would be able to master those skills at each grade level. So, we'll have to go and look up there. So with that, to pinpoint two important domains that the New Jersey Department actually really did a lot of intensive work, it would be the reading and writing foundations. They looked at adding some components in the foundation's reading skills, where a lot of phonics and phonemic work actually took place. They added some new components in 2023, as you see highlighted on the screen, as well as they added a new standard, which is the foundation's writing skills, which they are going to be emphasizing sound and letter basics, letter formation, encoding and spelling skills, grammar, and also the development of writing skills and habits. So with this work, what did OPS do in order to implement these revisions? So during the spring of 2024, the K-6 ELA curriculum team was assembled and they met in order to plan the curriculum revisions. And then they began their revision work in June through August of 2024, where reading, writing, and grammar revisions were done for all of the curricular units. In order to do this work, the curriculum writers collaborated with Patty McGee to assist them with writing those curricular. They were using the Reading Strategies Book 2.0 and the Writing Strategies book by Jennifer Savallo, which are research-based programs, to revise the K-5 OPS reading and writing curricular. To revise the grammar curricular, we utilized Patty McGee's Grammar Study and Micro Workshop in grades K through 5. So, what changes, what's different, what will we actually notice in our curriculum? When you look at it, we have a noted change of foundations. While we have been using foundations in K to 3, we actually implemented it and indicated it into our curricular guide, And we also made that curricular note for Hegarty for grades K to 1. Again, we were utilizing it, but it just was not noted in our curriculum guides. As far as for the Institute of Multi-Sensory Education, we're actually utilizing a change in vocabulary when we're teaching the reading strategies that are actually Orton-Gillingham based, as well as aligned with the science of reading. So we implemented that change. In addition, with our curricular guides, there's going to be less units that will actually be taught at each grade level. There's going to be an inclusion of common text to support vocabulary development in grades 4. We have an emphasis on pre and post assessments for each writing unit. And then we have a modified reading assessment that will document data on oral and silent reading rates, fluency, decoding accuracy, and literal and inferential comprehension. In addition to that progress monitoring, we also have DIBELS, Link It as well, and we will be administering those 3 times during the year. So again, we have been actively yesterday, today, as well as tomorrow with our team members. We have actually been reviewing the standards in ELA and math, as far as myself, as well as the other administrators that are on staff here. We've provided new materials for the 2024-2025 school year to support all instruction. We have also been reviewing data to inform instruction and beginning intervention groups and strategies, as well as all of the team members have been meeting as grade levels to begin planning for the initial unit. Thank you.
Before I open it up to the board with questions, you know that I'm not going to let language arts go without saying a few things. There are parts of this curriculum I'm really, really excited about. One, it does document some of what we were doing and weren't telling people we were doing, and then that put me in the position of having to explain more. So if our curriculum is as clear as possible, that's going to help. The piece that I'm most excited about is grades 4 and 5. We specifically added these content text to build background knowledge. It is a passion of mine and something I'm incredibly concerned that aren't necessarily always deliberately put in our curriculum. We know what we teach in science for a year, we know what we teach in social studies for a year, but there's a lot more in the world that students should know about. And so whether it's freedom on the menu and learning about the sit-ins, we're using that to teach vocabulary, but we're also using that to build content knowledge. And kudos to Mr. Mangle for really helping our 4th and 5th grade teachers. He gave them tons of books. They really looked for it and said, how do we bridge this over 2 years to ensure that our students are getting more knowledge in a way that's interesting, exciting, also builds vocabulary, and also teaches reading skills and strategies. And thank you to Ms. Cummings, who really jumped in at the end of this to kind of keep us moving forward. She really worked with staff today, and we had some really good conversations about what's new, what's different, where teachers are going to need support, what they need to change immediately, and what we're going to continue to develop. As you'll remember, we were very specific about how we planned our professional development days this year to ensure that we had continued support. So we do have Columbus Day as a professional development day, so we're really talking to staff about let's focus on those first few weeks and get to Columbus Day and do that next step together. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. Is this the Reader's Strategies book and the Writing Strategies book? Is this a step away from the Readers and Writers Workshop?
We still have reading and writing workshop. We still have parts in our day where children are going to choose text and read text. What we are working with our staff on right now is what are those texts children are going to read. So we are still going to assess students using, frankly, the passages from Teachers College. We've changed the recording form and some of the questions we're going to use. However, our classroom libraries will not be leveled with those books.
And will there be any focus on phonics or grammar?
Well, we have that phonics focus already because we have foundations in kindergarten,
Foundations,
first,
right.
second, and third grade. And we added Haggerty to kindergarten last year, and we are adding it to first grade this year. The vocabulary part in 4th and 5th grade was kind of our bridge from third grade. Third
So-
grade foundations does a little bit more with vocabulary, and we
Right.
felt like there was a hole in 4th and 5th grade.
So will they still do Earl of the students or no?
In grades 2 through 5, they will still.
2 through 5, they're still Earl, and then
Except we will also do dibbles in grades K
Dibbles.
through 5.
K through 5 dibbles.
And what we talked to staff today about is what will be the classroom teacher's job and what will be the intervention teacher's job.
Okay. Thank you.
Who is Patty McGee?
Patty McGee is a literacy staff developer who many moons ago worked for the Northern Valley Curriculum Center. Patty actually worked in Oradell many, many moons ago through the Northern Valley Curriculum Center. She then did leave for a small period of time to work for Gravity Goldberg. She has left them. River Edge is also using Patty McGee for their writing curriculum units. What I have always really respected in Patty McGee is when you work with a staff developer, some staff developers are very theoretical and they give you all the background knowledge. And some staff developers walk you through what to do every single day, but don't do the background knowledge. I have always found that Patty McGee weaves the two together, and our staff were very receptive. Grammar's a passion of hers, and our staff were really receptive to working with her.
Does she still work with the Northern Valley Curriculum Center?
No, she's actually out on her own now.
Okay, thank you.
No, that concludes my report.
I
Oh, one more thing, I'm so sorry. We did have ice cream from all of you today. Teachers did text me or email me after I sent out the email that the board wanted to thank them for their work already this year and the work that they know that they will put into their classrooms and had put a small token of gratitude in a ice cream novelty buffet bar in the board office, and I think Mr. Iapelli may not have gotten any work done because people get really excited for a Klondike bar around here. So on behalf of the staff, thank you.
Mr. Iapelli?
Yes. We have actually, that meeting on the exhaust fans is actually tomorrow at 2 o'clock, so I'll have much more information as to when they're working, how they're going to work, how we're going to follow up with everything regarding that. Also, just been working with the new people. Everything's getting settled now. They're starting to learn our routines here at Oradell, and they're coming along really well. I mean, it can bring a good energy, a different attitude. So the business office has changed, but it's changed for the better. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to minutes, we have review of August 21st. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Iapelli. We have the approval of July 24th. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve minutes of July 21st. I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
Mr. Del Greco,
Yes.
Mrs. Downey,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Abstain.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian isn't here, Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, we'll move to committee reports, buildings and grounds. Mr. Darian is not here. Mr. Nutlin, would you take buildings and grounds?
Use of facilities, B1.
I second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
Mr. Del Greco,
Yes.
Mrs. Downey,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian absent, Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, curriculum, Mrs. Norian.
Yes, you should have the minutes from our meeting plus that were in your packet, and in addition, the presentation tonight. With that in mind, I would like to move on C1, C2, C3. Oh, and we also then throw in the field trips destinations for C4.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions?
Are they
Mr. Del
really
Greco?
walking to Blauvelt?
All right.
Last year, we actually had parents drive and we met them there, but there have been years that a small group has walked.
Okay.
So that's why we put it on there.
Any other questions, Mrs. Norian? No. Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
Mr. Del Greco,
Yes.
Mrs. Downey,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, finance, technology, Mrs. Acosta, before I turn it over to her, before she makes the motion, I have a question. Do we need to approve D3 tonight since it did not go through finance? Can it wait till the next meeting? Yes, no? Not my problem. This is the YMCA lease. It always goes through finance. We talk about it, we see what we want to raise it. It's already been presented to the Y without going through finance, so it's up to the board what they want to do.
Was it presented on the other agenda, the preliminary agenda? It was.
So I turn it over to you, Mrs. Acosta.
Are we going to keep D3 in, or?
If it hasn't been discussed in finance, right? So, okay.
You could just keep it in and people can vote singly on, that one too. It's fine. Whatever you want to do. You're the chair.
What would happen if we didn't? Does it prevent them from doing their service?
They were already told, I guess, the amount, so I guess it's kind of moot, but I would kind of like to see where we get the percentage, but it's up to you. It's up to her.
I'd like to present D1 through D4.
I'll second.
Any questions?
For D3, are there any other changes or just the increase?
It's a 6% rate increase, that was it.
That's it? No
It's
other
been
changes?
no.
Okay.
Any other questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Del Greco?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes to D1, 2, and 4. I abstain on D3. Delegate report, Mr. Walsh.
I have nothing to report. No meetings yet.
Have you heard of any meetings coming, Mr. Iapelli? Did we see anything yet? I
haven't
thought
seen
I
it.
saw something about a deadline for resolutions somewhere coming through.
That's for the delegates assembly.
Yeah, okay. Personnel, Mrs. Walker.
Yeah, I have, could we go back to
Sure,
D3?
sure.
No, I forgot what I was going to say. I'll have to take a pass.
We could take it, we could bring it back under old
I'll put
business.
it under old
Yeah, you want to
business.
take personnel for now?
Yeah, I'd like to present F1. I'll second it.
Any questions? I have a question, of course. This leave, did it go through personnel? Did it go through personnel?
None of our leaves, I don't
Yes,
bring
they
every
do,
leave.
because they have to be approved by personnel, don't they?
I haven't been doing that with any of them.
Any other questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Del Greco?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, policy, Mr. Del Greco.
I'd like to bring forward G1 to approve the following revised policies as stated in the last board meeting. Visitor policy, visitor regulation, audit, attendance and absences, sports-related concussion, and emergency disaster preparedness.
Do I have a
Second.
second by Mr. Walsh? Any questions or comments? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Del Greco?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, public relations, Mrs. Downey.
I don't have anything.
Open to the public.
Should I use this? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think this one will reach,
Or if you
Move the podium.
I mean. Let's see.
It's just that part.
How much cable do we have? Just this much?
Here we go.
Alright, this should work. I don't think we need to put it all the way.
I can use my teacher voice.
Yeah, I mean, this will work.
Sure. Jen Allen, Wildwood Road. I'll reiterate that I still don't understand how school boards work and why. Maybe someone can point me in the direction of understanding. There's an opportunity for public comment on agenda items, always to start the meeting. The revised ELA curriculum, which you know has always concerned me, was presented tonight, followed by your vote to approve this, which all comes post the opportunity for public comment, with nothing for the public to review prior, very little to no information presented either by the curriculum committee or anyone else in prior meetings. I appreciate Mr. Nutland's questions, but I'm just not sure why that isn't done either in a meeting prior, the presentation prior to a vote, if public comment on agenda items is something that you want, welcome, or care about. I think it's amazing to hear that content knowledge is important in 4th and 5th grade. My concern as a mom of a 1st grader and a 2nd grader is why isn't it important in K also? I know Jennifer Ciravolo, I've worked with her personally. It is an enhanced way to teach teachers college. Yes, we can call lots of things research aligned, but I'm just, I guess, curious about the process. This was the same last meeting with the math curriculum. Something is presented, it's voted on. There's really no comment by the public for agenda items if the public doesn't know what's really on the agenda and can ask questions, give 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Amory Spiegel, Ellis Place. I'm so thankful that 15 teachers were trained, you said 15, right, in science of reading, but I would implore you to train the rest of your K-3 staff because we know that teacher knowledge is paramount. Research on teacher knowledge on the science of reading indicates that a strong understanding of the foundational components of reading, including phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension is crucial for the effective reading instruction. And the standards and the curriculum, as we know, as you said, have changed. And I'm thankful that you're training some teachers, but I would really implore you to train the rest of your K-3 staff. I'm also so thankful that you're utilizing DIBELS, as we know is reliable. And I really hope that the teachers are going to be the ones that are administrating DIBELS, not the interventionists, because you really want your teachers to be the ones to know their own students, not just the interventionists. As Jen said, I'm thankful that you are integrating background knowledge in the upper grades, but I also hope that you are doing so in K through 3, because all the research is showing that background knowledge is paramount to reading instruction. And in my thankful list, I'm also thankful for the vocabulary content in the upper grades after foundations, but again, I would implore you to look really into morphology for your 4th and 5th graders, not just in vocabulary, but in the morphology units. And I'm disappointed about the OPS assessment. I really hope that you're not focusing on it as much as you were on the TC assessment. I hope it's not, because I hear about the parents talking about what level my kid is at, and I don't want that for my kids. So I really hope that you're moving away from that, because you have to look really into something that's valid and reliable, and the Teachers College assessment is not it. So I really hope that there is some movement on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, old or new business? Mrs. Walker, did you think about what you wanted to ask?
Yes, this pertains to D3, the approval of the YWCA. Now, they're being charged an extra 6% this year, correct? That's what I understood. Does that mean that the parents pay that 6%? Who pays for that?
That would be up to the Y to determine their rates.
So they determine, we don't have any control over.
As a parent who uses the Y right now, you sign up over the summer, the rates are preset for hours. So if you pick up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or 7 o'clock, they charge you per, or they can charge you like a ticket system, but all those rates have been I believe, as far as I know, been paid, published in advance. So it's up to the Y and how they proceed forward.
So if I'm delayed at work till 6 o'clock when I'm signed in to just take my child or children out at 5, I get charged that.
Extra, yeah, so you'll pay your contracted amount until 5 o'clock, and then if you pick up at 6, they have like, I think, I don't know what the rate is, it's like $20 or something like that for that day, and then they'll charge you extra for that.
Okay, and has it gone up this year, what you're paying?
I gotta look, I don't think it's gone up substantially or at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other old or new business? Okay.
Just a thank you to the administration and to, for the presentation tonight on the updating of the curriculum and all the updates on the building. They really were needed and they've been done very well.
And another successful open.
Yes, yes, no crybabies.
A few, just us.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we do need to go into a closed session for a student issue and a legal issue, so I need someone to make a motion.
So I would move that we go into an executive session.
I'll second it.
All in, no, roll call?
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta. Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey.
Yes.
Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Nutland.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker. Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, we will not be taking action after, and it should be pretty quick.